What is going on YouTube? Jason's Dragonbane here. And I was finally able to I'm finally starting to get a little bit more time to get some more duels in. So for this video I actually have two matches I'm going to show you. The first one was against geargias. Geargia is one of those decks that, given the right circumstances and the right hands, they can really just push for OTKs, especially when comboed with the Kamakuris like this one was. So he started off with the arsenal into the armor, set to backfield and pass. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice my caribou for swallow just to try and get that backfield a little bit less on top of me. I knew it was armor, but I had to at least try and get rid of some stuff while I had an option. So he goes trap stun. So at this point I was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure Swallow stays on the field no matter what. So I chained both Tensons to make sure he stayed there. He goes off into the Kamakuri OTK stuff, getting many pluses with armor's effect and so on. Luckily for me, at this point, he had nothing he could do to get rid of Swallow, and Swallow was 2700 at this point, so I was going, okay, I really have to be worried of this backfield, but I can freeze one of them at least, and then if anything happens, I still have at least Transmodify and Onslaught of Fire Kings to work with. So I've managed to whittle him down so far. He goes for Scrap Dragon. I was like, I really don't care that much about Scrap Dragon because I have Phoenix Chain and he can't get rid of my Beast Warriors. So that's where he ended up quitting game 1. Okay guys, and we're back for game 2. My opening hand this time around was not very good. I saw both Transmodify, but thankfully I did see Raven. So at least I was able to maybe get a good combo off right off the bat. So he goes into the arsenal into armor set 2 play again. I was like, that's fine. So I draw into Dragon. I was like, we're just going to try for this play. Unfortunately for me, he had the Solemn Warning to stop Transmodify, so I was only able to get Raven's effect off. So I had to go into Tensu to Dragon, and then I just set the other back rows as a bluff. He goes into armor to grab the arsenal. Goes Gargano, goes on a complete special summoning spree. I'm forced to try and Phoenix Chain the geargia X. Unfortunately for me, the other face down was Trap Stun. So he's able to just keep going off and keep gaining pluses. So at this point, I'm in a really bad predicament. I only have Gorilla in hand, and he still has a backfield to worry about. So thankfully, I draw into Goyoko. I try to go to Battle Phase, and unfortunately for me, he's got the Effect Veiler for Gorilla, so I couldn't get a plus out of that, so I decided to Transmodify him into Swallow, into Tenson, and pray to God that Swallow would at least survive for a while. So he gets a +2 out of the Gear Giant X's, goes on a crazy Kamakuri thing again, getting more pluses off of armor, and at this point I'm thinking I'm in a really bad situation, just because Swallow's barely going to be able to survive through this entire turn. So I really need to draw a monster or a fire formation right there. I didn't. So I was like, okay, I have to set Onslaught. I was able to do a little bit of damage in, but I knew I was going to be in a really bad predicament at this point because he now was able to summon Scrap Dragon, which beat over my Swallow, and I knew I was dead there, so we're moving on to game 3. Okay guys, then we're back for game 3. My hand again was not really good. If I could have gotten like game 2 and game 3 hands together with some of the fire formations from 3 and some of the monsters from 2, it would have been a lot better. So I decided to go into pretty much a dragon into some backfield plays. Made Kieran just to try and give him something to worry about. Unfortunately, he had Effect Veiler, so I wasn't able to set the Tenson to complete the combo. So he goes Arsenal into armor, sets it with 3 background. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to really fight out this. I was really happy to see Blackwing of Heaven at this point. So he DP'd my Karen. I was like, this is really hurting me now. Thankfully for me, I did have that Blackwing of Heaven to stop that Synchro Summon, and Raven was still around. So at this point, I was going, okay, it's desperation time. He tries to Book a Moon my boar. I was like, no, I cannot let armor gain more pluses, so I'm going to Black Rose his field, put the Tanky down, play Tanky for Wolfbark, summon Wolfbark, use his effect to summon Dragon, summon into Tiger King, who will put another Tanky down so I can hopefully continue to plus out of this. play the Tensu, and then pass my turn. Unfortunately for me, he draws the Misty. So I tried to go for the Tinky, and he drew into that Misty. I was like, this is really bad. I was like, what are the chances this is another armor? Happened to be another armor. I was like, okay, this is really bad now. So I decided to make another desperate move, basically, and put Swallow out just so I could put Tenson out. So he goes into Gargano MK2, puts Arsenal out, summons this guy, uses his effect to summon level 4, summons Black Rose, nukes my field, and sets 1. So we're now both in a top-decking situation, basically. So I summon Dragon, poke him for the 18, and pass my turn. He draws into a monster that can survive Dragon. If I could have drawn anything besides MST at that point, if I could have gotten any fire formation, I would have been okay. Unfortunately for me, he draws a monster that allows him just to go on to his crazy combos. And from this point, I knew I was in a really bad situation. As he was going to be able to make both berets and then at the end make a Drago Sack, which I was going to have a really hard time getting over at this point. So I draw into Gayoko, and I'm like, okay, this can't help me, but I can hopefully survive for a turn. Hits me for the 14, hits me for the 26. I was like, okay, I'm okay if I can just draw something, and I draw into another Gayoko, so I knew I was done there. For me, losing that match, it was bad, but I really had to come up with some different ways to try and counteract their field. I'm thinking I'm going to have to probably come up with a few more side options for geargias because they are going to get a little more prevalent with the YCS Atlanta, one of the geargias being in the top 4. I believe it took 2nd or 3rd place. But it was still a fun little match. I ended up losing, but that's okay. So we'll move on to the other match. Okay, guys, and we're back for the second match of this duel, and this one happened to be against Agents. So I happened to go first, so I was like, okay, we're just going to set Raven and set Fiendish Chain to see what goes on. He Foolish Burials in Earth, which I thought was really strange. I was like, okay then. So I was able to stack Raven for Swallow and get both effects. This Compulse and the Fiendish Chain in his hand were both now worthless. I Geico the backfield just to be safe anyways. Hit for the 2200 off the Swallow and pass my turn. So he sets 2 more backfield. I'm going, okay, what does he possibly have that I could possibly even have to worry about? Saw the Fiendish Chain, I was like, well, that wasn't really anything that I needed to worry about. I was like, and I'm still hitting for a whole bunch of damage. So at this point, I was like, what am I fighting? I know it's something with Earth, but I really had no clue at that point. So his hand was just really bad, and we mainly went on to game 2. Okay, guys, and we're back for game 2. He got to go first this time, and he did open up with Venus, which is really good for him. And my hand was actually pretty good opening. I had Boar, Wolfbark, Tensu, Tenson, and Fiendish Chain. So I was like, okay. So he goes into Venus, uses its effect 3 times to summon out the 3 Shine Balls, and then he makes Gachi Gachi and sets 2 backfield, and then he passes turn. So I was like, yeah, pretty standard agent play when they open up, right? So I was like, you know, we're going to go for Desperation since I drew this. We're going to go Black Rose just to clear a little bit of his back row while maintaining somewhat of my advantage with Fiendish Chain. So I go tanky into the Bear, set my 2 cards. I was like, okay, I'm okay as long as Hyperion doesn't make an early appearance. Unfortunately for me, I had 2 Hyperions. So I was able to Fiendish Chain the 1. I was really surprised right here that he didn't pop the Fiendish Chain to make his other one live again, but I guess he wanted to make sure he wasn't walking into a Mirror Force. So I go Wolfbark into Boar, make Tiger King, use his effect to set Tenson, negate their effects, play the Tenki for another Wolfbark, and then kill the Card Trooper. He gets to draw 1. He called the Hunteds the Card Trooper out. I was like, that's fine. You can mill everything you want right now. Fortunately for me, he milled Honest, so I knew I was completely safe from that. So I was like, okay, negate their effects. You're going Dust Tornado my Tensu. I was like, that's fine. We'll go Wolfbark into Boar, which will now make Crimson Blare since I know I don't have to worry about a Honest play. So he draws into Tour Guide with that. Thankfully, I did go into Crimson Blare when I did. Otherwise, BLS could have really hurt in this duel. So he goes into Zen Main and attacks Tiger King. So I put my Tenson on him, knowing it would really hurt his life points. He decides to go and destroy Tiger King, so I use a special summon effect, and he decides to end right there because he knows I pretty much can go into Cowboy right after that for game. So that was a fun little match we had, and I'll show you guys one bonus duel for this video. Okay guys, and we're back for the last duel of this video, and this happens to be against blackwings. So I go first, and I opened up 3 out of my 4 fire formation traps. So I was like, just summon dragon and set the back row, and we'll pass. So at this point, his hand was freezing a lot during the standby phase and draw phases. So I knew that there had to be something in his hand worth there. So I was determined just to draw out these Kalutes as fast as possible. And I happened to draw out 2 of them just by doing some plays. He had the effect veiler for Wolfpark, but I was like, that's really okay. Yeah, I have really nothing to worry about yet. So it's like, okay, as long as his backfield that he freed up now has nothing to do with the summon, I'm okay. And it didn't pause at all when Wolfpark was summoned, so I was able to immediately go, okay, we're going Gorilla to pop that. Gorilla now gains more pluses for me. Tiger King swings through, and we'll just pass turn there. So he draws into his other Misty. Misty is my tank in for some reason, which I thought was really weird. Knowing this is tanky, he could have really just gotten rid of tanky, and it wouldn't have been really bad for me because Gorilla was still there, and he still had Blizzard. So it's not like he couldn't make plays. He just decided not to fight me anymore. So that was the duel for this time, guys. As always, like the video, comment down below, and as always, subscribe.